Meeting to order. First item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, March 14th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Second item is a delegation. I'd like to invite Mr. David Lynn to come forward. He's going to speak to a Housing Choices pre-application related to 707 Clark Road.
Okay, this is just for, it's a pre-application, so there's no resolution or anything. It's just to hear Mr. Lynn. So your name and address for the record, please, Mr. Lynn.
Madam Chairperson, thank you, and Councillor. My name is David Lynn, 916 Finlay Street, White Rock, BC.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And I just want to represent the owner of the 707 Clark Road and try to do a presentation of what we're proposing on this property. Should I go through what we're
Yeah,
changes?
And if you need the overhead, it's there. And
yeah, I don't have overhead. I think just go through what everybody
Sure.
should have the minutes.
Okay.
We're proposing a RT1 to rezone to RT3 from a duplex to a fourplex. So essentially, we're doing a two duplex on the property, and because the lot area allows for a fourplex, and what we're trying to do with the fourplex is to, in the design perspective, is to have essentially a two building presence on the street, both from Clark Road and also Harrison. And because the site is irregularly shaped and limited by the Clark Road, and the only access we can provide from the street is from Harrison Avenue. And because we're limited by no access from Clark Road, the street front from Harrison Road is very limited. And what we're proposing to do a parking from the Harrison is to have all the parking on the site would be recessed, half-story below grade, and all the access to the parking will be through a designed central street in the middle of the property, if you look at the site plan. And so essentially, no parking will be on the street or visible from the street, and it will be a sunken half level down from the building. If you can go through the architectural drawings, I think A4. The A4 has a view of Harrison Avenue view, and essentially that's what the development will look like from Harrison Street, and that's the most visible view from the street, and also from the neighbors. So, and the view from Clark, because it's such a busy road, and there's a buffer of tall fir trees. So essentially that will be retained, the trees will be retained, and the buffer will be there as well. So the view of Harrison Road will be A5, on drawing A5. So essentially we're following all the guidelines of the new RT3, and the only variance that we're asking for is the minor setbacks from from Harrison and from the side property lines, and because of the irregular shaped lot, and we're asking for minor variances for these setbacks, so we allow to make a better design on our property. And in terms of the amenity spaces, we're basically doubling what's proposed for the green space.
Okay. Are there any questions? Councillor Osmondson?
Just through to staff, this is on Clark Road, and with the Evergreen line, this looks like it's going to be part where the tunnel is going to be going under. I'm just concerned about a development with the tunneling and the vibration and stuff like that would cause on a property in this such close proximity. And would this be something that the Evergreen project would also be wanting to have comment on also?
Madam Chair, yes, we have referred the inquiry through to the province, and there's no issue at this time. They are aware of this project. It is well above the ultimate location of the corridor, so they don't anticipate any issues, but we would be coordinating that with the province should this become a full application. At this point, it's just a preliminary application.
Okay, because I know there's some concern about the tunneling, the vibration. If you build a new house on there, what would it effect have to that building, and is this maybe impact for the quality of that home and the people that purchase these things in the longer term? So that's just my concern. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I have a few questions of my own. One was with respect to the SkyTrain, and you realize where it's located, correct?
Yes, it's underground. I'm not sure how far down underground it is, but
Okay.
it is.
The other question I have is regards to parking. If I look on the sheet, it tells me that you have, I've lost it. Is it 6 parking spots, I believe?
Apparently the floor plan's not on the
Right.
it's basically a one-car garage, and then some of them are the visitor parking will be in the carport underneath.
So will each unit, well, 3 of the units are going to have 2 parking spots, and
You will be, it's one and a half parking spot per unit.
and are these 3-bedroom units?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. I personally am going to have, this is your pre-application, so I dump everything on you now. I'm going to have a bit of problem with the parking, I think, when you're
Okay.
dealing with family homes. I think 2-car parking, especially because they're going to have a very constrained site that you have to get into, and even if they have visitors, to have an extra spot
Yes.
is going to be important. And the other thing, I guess, I did ask as well staff about the SkyTrain stuff, but I also asked about the highest and best use for this property, because it is along a SkyTrain corridor, and I would wonder if this is the highest and best use. You're certainly within your rights to build whatever you choose at this point in time, but I would just give you those comments.
Sure. There's one comment about the parking. We my initial proposal is to have 2 parking spaces per unit, but I think with the conversation with the planning staff, and they want me to reduce the parking to 1.5 units. So I don't know what. I certainly would like to have two parking spaces per unit.
Yeah. Well, I would encourage you to work with them on that one.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming forward.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item, item 3, is a preliminary report on OCP Amendment Bylaw 4204 and a zoning amendment Bylaw 4205. This is for a proposed apartment development at 539 to 557 Foster Avenue. We have a delegation from Mosaic Homes and a presentation.
Okay, come forward, please. Name and address for the record.
My name is Luciano Zago, and I'm with Mosaic Homes. And we're here to talk about the development at 539 to 557 Foster Avenue. The process that we've gone through is actually, I looked back at it, it's been 13 months that we've been looking at this site, and that we've been engaging council, staff, and the community. And it's been a very extensive process to get us to this point. We've had a door-to-door knocking campaign in the neighborhood. We held public information sessions. We've had meetings with a number of community groups. And of course, we've met with members of council and very extensive meetings with staff. So I think it's been quite thoroughly reviewed. Not that I'm looking to curry any favor, but I found the staff report to be very thorough and addressed many, many of the issues, and one often doesn't see one
Could I
that
just
well prepared.
hold up for a moment? Raul, could you put up attachment 5 for us, please?
Yeah. I can leave my answer.
Just in case there's any people in the audience that have given me phone calls about this, do you want this one, Jay? Well, I can look at it on the screen, so you put it up. one of the questions came up from some of the neighborhood, and I just wanted to bring this up while you're talking about it. The subject lands there, the green part to the top it's all our park, the green part. But the reason why apartments instead of townhouses, because I believe you went out originally with townhouses, correct?
Actually,
a couple of years ago or something, you started.
When we started the process, we actually met with the community and discussed options of what could happen here. Yeah.
And so
that was one of the options.
The reason I'm bringing it forward is that when I spoke to staff about this, just completing this last little brown patch with apartments sort of completes the apartment grid, if you will. And right below where it says subject lands, this developer has given up half a roadway so that we will have eventually a continuity back through to Cottonwood there as well. So thank you and go forward. I just wanted to put that out there.
You've given half my presentation already.
Oh, well, that's going to shorten it up.
So I'll quickly go through it. I think many of you looked at the report, so I just wanted to go through it quickly, just look at the context again. These are the 7 sites, the 7 lots that we've consolidated, assembled on Foster Avenue, and these are the 3 sites that the city owns where the proposed expansion of the park is. Why we are interested in this site, first of all, is it's on the edge, as Councillor Reid has pointed out, of OCP designated medium-density apartment development to the north and to the west. And to the east, there's a park and then the potential to expand the park. And then also we have Foster Avenue, which is a major collector route through the city for an east-west connection. So we found that interesting. And the other thing that's interesting about this is if you look at the yellow line that goes around the outside, that's about a 5-minute walk, which quickly gets you over to all the transit options on North Road, and also gets you over to transit on Cottonwood Avenue, which is the local bus routes, and is also a fairly easy walk over to the shopping at Clark Road and Como Lake, where the future development for the transit will be for the Green Line. So it's a very positive from a transit-oriented development that way. And then if you zoom out a little bit further, you can see here's the site here and its access to the whole regional transportation network. The proposal for this site is to amend the official community plan to an RM3 designation to facilitate the development of 3 4-story apartment buildings on 1 level of underground parking. This would be a total of 161 units with 241 parking stalls, 3 loading areas, 1,400 square feet of indoor amenity space, and 8,645 square feet of outdoor amenity space. We also see this as an opportunity to provide a number of community benefits, which include an expansion of Cottonwood Park, dedicating lands along Foster to upgrade Foster Avenue to the full Coquitlam design standards, expand the lane, the lane to the west to facilitate the future road to the north, and to upgrade some of the local infrastructure in the area. Why do we think it's important that we consider amending the OCP in this area? The current zoning, with these being 7 single-family homes on very large lots, doesn't fit within the kind of overall vision for the Coquitlam Neighborhood Association, being that it's looking for more density closer to transit and amenities. It's an opportunity to develop in the park more park space. We've heard that's an issue for a number of the neighbors here. We can improve the road network and provide upgraded infrastructure. There's also an opportunity to provide a greater variety of housing and in this area, which is close to amenities and services. And we think is an opportunity to create an excellent form of housing which could set the tone for future redevelopment in the area. Why do we think about amending to an RM3 and Parks and Rec? We did go out to the community and to different people and discuss the pros and cons of 4-story wood frame versus 3-story townhomes. And what we came away from that was that the apartment form would be more in keeping with the current form and proposed form to the north and the west of apartments, and also would complete this area. It would provide more variety of unit types and also more price points, which is more in keeping with the kind of market that's in this area. What's unique about this, the lot sizes here, is they're very deep. And it actually gives us an opportunity to create apartment buildings which are typically along the street front, to turn them perpendicular to the street front and orient the short end of the building to the street as opposed to the long side. So that would be, and also create these courtyards, which would be a unique form of housing not found and very in keeping with an infill form. And also having more units facilitates our opportunity to contribute more to community benefits, such as expansion of Coquitlam Park. And so just to Councillor Reid's point about, if you see, that's the context with the apartments to the north and the west, and we could fill in that block and then start to use Cottonwood Park as a buffer to the single family and use Foster Avenue as a buffer to the single family across the street. Then we would look at taking the city land and rezoning that as park and expanding the park to the south and making quite a positive edge here. And what would be interesting in the future, if the city was to acquire the properties to the north there, have a park that would link right through that whole area and provide a wonderful public space there. One of the things we've heard from the residents is a concern about safety. Providing a well-designed park which allows a lot of transparency and ability to see through, and providing lots of eyes on the park from the apartment building, I think could help to increase security in this area and alleviate some of those concerns. The other community benefit is to take Foster Avenue and complete it to the full envisioned frontage. And if we take this whole frontage, it would be quite significant. We would have a bike lane, we would have a parking lane, then we would have the landscape boulevard, plus we would have the sidewalk. And we could do that quite extensively and get about 20 on-street parking stalls along Foster Avenue. And then an idea which we thought was a very good one that came from staff when they look long-term how this whole area would start to grow is, can we provide more land dedication for a north-south direction connection for a new road. So we've done that. We're providing a half-road dedication on our property, and also they'll provide more on-street parking there. And in the long term, we'll provide more connections for staff. Okay. And, sorry, I just skipped over. And we'd be providing a new water line that goes from Foster Avenue right through to the site. And that water line would provide water not only for this development, but also for future developments in this area. As I mentioned, what's interesting about the courtyard is that it makes the frontages of the buildings quite small to the street, and also provides these semi-public green spaces between the homes. And I think it will make for less impact on the neighbors across the street and provide more views through the site than a street-oriented development. Traffic is something we've heard from the neighbors as well. Foster is a collector route. There is a traffic light at the corner of Foster and North Road. We've had a traffic study done, and they conclude that there's enough capacity at this intersection to deal with the traffic that's generated from this project. We propose taking all the traffic down the new road across the back lane and bring all the traffic into there and locate it off the back lane. This back lane would be maintained not only for access to this site, but also for firefighting in the future in the area, plus all the loading areas for the apartments would be located off the lane as well. And in the long term, traffic, we would imagine, would start to come down as we provide more opportunities for pedestrians to move easily through the area. Parking, we've met all the parking required as per the zoning bylaw. We have 209 residential parking stalls, 32 visitors, and although no bicycle parking is required, we are providing 114 stalls for that. One of the features of the overall site plan is create these yellow arrows show ways you get into the site, this being the new street, this being into a courtyard, this being into a courtyard, and this being a walkway beside the new park to the east. This is the 8,000 plus square feet of outdoor amenity space, which should be shared amongst all the people. We've oriented all the entries to the buildings, the lobbies off Foster Avenue to make them feel more like like homes you can come off a main street, and we located amenity spaces in each of the buildings associated with that lobby space, in addition to a major amenity space here for all the buildings to use. And then coming into these courtyards, also people would have front doors to the lower units. So that whole idea of connecting the apartments to the street and to the outdoor space is something we've taken to heart here. And one of the concerns we've heard from the community was the amount of green space that would be provided. So you can see it's quite extensive. This allowable coverage is 55%, and we're at 45%, and we'd be providing a sustainable form of landscape design for the site. A big argument for the apartments is that it provides a variety of housing forms for this area. We're looking at 54 units in each of the buildings, so it gives the opportunity to scale it to more of a community size. And then also we'd be looking at providing 4 accessible units throughout the development, spread between the 3 buildings. So every building gets its own amenity space. You can see that about 44% of it would be 2-bedroom units. We would have 26% 1-bedroom units. Then we also have a number we have about 15% 3-bedroom units as well. And then we have some 1-bedrooms and dens, so quite a variety of housing forms for that market. And finally, the large 1,400 square foot amenity space. One of the concerns was the way the 4-story apartment building would interact with single-family homes across the street. What we've done is we have stepped the building, so it's actually 3 stories along the street, and pulled the 4-story back and created a terrace, and then sloped the roof back, and also created a cornice just below. So that would set you, some of the houses across the street are quite old and quite small, so if they were to be redeveloped a single family, you can see the outline of what that would be allowable under that redevelopment. So the scale of this development to new development across the street would be quite compatible. And here you can see the cornice, the 3 stories, and then the setback, and the feeling more of a 3-story elevation as opposed to 4 along the street. And one of the things that we think is critical is that the development create a lot of pedestrian interest. So we'll have entrances to the building, entrances to the units, all off the street, interesting trellises and marquees that take you into the courtyards, and then a variety of colors and textures for the buildings.
Okay.
So in the end, just in conclusion, we think this proposal fulfills the principles of transit-oriented development in accordance with the OCP, provides a significant number of community benefits, provides a diversity of housing and price points, and we think would fit well within the existing context and creates a positive image for the future context of the area.
Okay, thank you. Hold on for questions. Is there any questions? Councillor Robinson, this thing isn't working.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Asmunsen next, then go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, just Councillor Asmussen's mic was activated first, so he's first.
Oh, okay, go first then. This thing isn't working.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. You've made some adjustments to your presentation. I'm just going to echo on a comment that was made, and it's just not about Mosaic. I think it's about other developments. Because to me, there's a sameness of straight lines in some of the development. I wanted to, for myself, start to see some more uniqueness in developments, more creativity in change. We see a lot of straight lines. We look at the other buildings that have a lot of straight lines. And I've seen other developments, other developers here coming. I see the same type of flat straight lines. We have some different things hanging off the front, maybe different textures, but I'm trying to find, I guess it goes back to, was mentioned, a certain wow factor and uniqueness that I'd like to start to see in some of our looks of our buildings. I know we deal with zoning here, and I guess maybe through the staff, maybe if there's any ways that staff needs any tools and stuff to work with to help create a more unique look in the buildings and how they're presented. I'm not going to stop this when it comes to an application moving forward. That's for yourself for future use and future developers. That's what I would like to see, whether it's here, Northeast, or wherever. I want to see a little more uniqueness in development. The other question I have is accessible units. You said 4, okay? The question is, are your other units then accessible, adaptable? Meaning, are they framed in such a way that you can then put in a wheelchair? Like, there's simple things you can do in framing and stuff like that to create a unit that is not accessible now but can be converted a lot simpler in the build of the buildings. And that's something I'd like to see throughout the building. So, because we're all getting older. The baby boomers are getting up there, which I'm one of them. And there may be a larger need in those building units. And I think there's a guideline that is in the city of Coquitlam has for developers to look at simple things for where grab bars, where supports could go for that, for going to the bathroom by making the opening possibly to be, you can frame it up for a regular door, frame it for a wider door so a wheelchair can get through. So I guess, to me, would you be willing to look at that part rather than just, and I like 4 accessible units, but I'd like to see the other units be able to be accessible, adaptable.
We can look at that. In fact, I think we're attending a meeting of this accessibility committee next week, I believe. So an opportunity. I've looked at the requirements, and we're assessing that, and we'll come to you with some very clear ideas about what's easy to do and so on. Because we're kind of deal with different markets.
Do you have
and how to
another
do
question, Councillor?
Just some information, if I may.
Go ahead.
There is some information done by the city presently. When Mr. Stewart was chair and I was vice chair of that committee, we did work with the committee at that time a couple of years ago to put together a package of information that is already there. So staff can forward that on to you.
I have it, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
I've looked at it. So we'll be meeting with the committee, and we will be coming back with responses.
Councillor Robinson. She's next to speak.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to congratulate you for hearing the first request and already incorporating it. And if I just want to make sure I understand, you're going from adaptable to accessible. So you're actually making. So I just wanted to make sure that we're speaking the same language, and we can.
Yeah, I understand. We'll have to look at. I was thinking adaptable.
Right, but what you put in your presentation was
you want to do
accessible.
accessible.
Well, that's what you put in your presentation,
so that's
why I'm clarifying.
We'll have to look at it carefully and which ones they are and how you do it.
Okay, so I do want to, I guess, compliment Mosaic for stepping up, and I'm pleased that you're prepared to work with us and with this committee around. So how do we do it so that we can co-create a standard that we can invite other developers to look at, particularly around our transit-oriented neighborhoods? And I wanted to just draw your attention to the Now newspaper just put in an article, Renovating for Accessibility. So even at the local level, the local media is picking up on this, and I think it's in Mosaic's best interest to continue on that road. So I thank you very, very much for that. I think there was one other thing that I had. Public parks, and I'm not sure, the green space I think is fabulous, and I'm wondering if given that this is a lot of apartments, higher density, and I don't know what the demand is going to be for community gardens and gardening, given that we're going higher density and given that it's right next to a park, and we have Coquitlam Community Gardens, which is not far from there, and I'm just wanting to invite our planning staff to maybe take a look and see if there's going to be a demand, if there's part of that park land, we ought to be looking at a demand for the community gardens as an amenity if there's uptake from the community on that.
McIntyre.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. May I just offer a couple of opening remarks and hand off to Raul or Eric, who had dealt more directly with the applicant on this. I think that's been one of the nice successes with this project to this point in our discussions and negotiations with the applicant is to see that needed green space come forward sooner, and also working with our Parks and Recreation staff for a program to bring that online sooner than originally planned. In terms of the components of that, I'll have to defer to Raul or Erica to respond on that.
Yes, Madam Chair, quickly, we are working with the developer and the Parks Department. The determination of the programming is really a bit of a process they have to go through. They're looking at all alternatives. The developers made some commitments around contributing to that. The goal would be to define the programming as quickly as we could and actually have it go through some form of consultation in the community and ultimately have it constructed along with the project. But we don't have any specific programming set yet, and we'll be working with Parks and the developer to that end.
Great. I'd heard from the city of North Van that their demand, because they're so high density, their demands for community gardens are completely outstripping their capacity. So people are loaning out their front yards for community gardens, and which I think is fabulous. But given that we've already had complaints about, butterflies and pollination and all that kind of stuff. It'd be great to be able to sort of acknowledge that, this is lovely land to be growing gardens, and don't want to lose that asset, and want to sort of keep that as part of the conversation. Thank you very much. I think, I really like what I see, and I really appreciate the acknowledgement of adaptability and accessibility. One last question. What this brings up for me, given the number of units, is that, and the variety of housing that we're trying to establish here, it reminds me of our affordable housing strategy, and it doesn't apply necessarily to this one, but I would really like to see it come forward, and want to know when we might be seeing that as we redevelop some of Coquitlam, and Austin Heights is on the agenda for later tonight. It'd be really helpful to, as we make these decisions, to keep that in mind. So, is there an update on that?
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting a little off on this particular application, but we are planning to bring forward a annual update of the affordable housing strategy, which we had committed to doing in the past. I think we fell off one year there. We had some staffing transitions and some focus on some other priorities. But I know our social planning group is looking at coming forward with an annual report on that, because I think there's a number of significant things, plus some other opportunities and some ideas, like looking at the wider range of affordable housing needs and various parties and partners that can participate in that. So looking at probably at late May for a report to this committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm done.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I think you've had enough compliments for today. I like it.
Thank you.
But I won't be any more specific than that. In the pages aren't numbered. This nice book you gave us, the page immediately following the landscape plan, it looks as though the sidewalks jog in and out, and that's just an architect's pretty idea.
Yeah, it'll be a straight sidewalk.
Be straight down.
Yeah, follows the street.
All the parking that you can fit on the side.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. I like your development. It looks very, very good, very attractive, I might add. And I'll move all three recommendations.
Okay, as soon as we're all finished talking, is that it?
I thought you were finished.
No, I haven't even begun. Like what I see, look forward to the park development. It is our property, city property, right to the immediate east of this. And I'm looking forward to that. Would go through our Parks and Leisure Department, so that will be a good thing. My big question, of course, is typical woman. I want to know about the color. This is red brick. Is it going to be red brick? Because when I look in here, it turns yellow.
Oh no, it won't be yellow. No.
That's
When you look where and
when I look here, this looks
that's right.
red brick. That's what I'm going to get.
Yep.
I'm going to hold you to that one.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a mover was Councillor Sikora. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McDonnell? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, please.
Item 4 is a report on the rezoning amendment bylaw 4121 for 801 Henderson Avenue. The staff recommendations to give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4120, refer the bylaw to public hearing, and direct staff to review the service commercial precinct south of Henderson as part of the upcoming Mayarville neighborhood plan.
Does staff have a presentation, or is there anyone here for a presentation? Raul? No? Okay. Does staff have a presentation or comments?
Madam Chair, some brief comments, perhaps, just to focus on the site. This site really builds on the existing gas station. It does add a gas station. There's a partnership between these two properties.
It's right beside it.
And that's the gas station at the corner of Lougheed and Brunette. We've been working with the applicant. There's a shared access agreement between the two properties. The key, I guess, notable recommendation in this report is in regards to the precinct immediately south of Henderson that's designated for service commercial. And it has been designated service commercial for quite some time, a better part of 20 years. But there is a number of new, smaller developments, some new single-family dwellings, some new duplexes that have gone in the area. There appears to be in transition, as well as, of course, what's happening with the overpass and some of the work in this area. As a result of that, what we are cautious about is similar proposals for service commercial within the heart of one of these little, around Jackson, for instance, that may be anomalous with that emerging pattern. As a result of that, we are recommending that there be a direction that we do review this precinct as part of the Mayorville plan. This particular development is very appropriate. It's actually adjunct to an existing service commercial use. Henderson, as it heads eastward, it does connect back up to Lougheed, so it's very appropriate. But other proposals potentially south of this area may be anomalous. So we do recommend that there be a direction on that in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Second.
Councillor Robinson, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Okay. Do we know much about how they're going to operate? Is this going to be a closed water system like the others that we've dealt with in terms of environmental impacts?
Madam Chair, I imagine the reference is around the car wash itself. We'll be looking at specific performance on this in terms of what environmental standards are appropriate. They would have to meet modern standards, so I'd have to talk to our servicing group and confirm the specifics of this. We could bring that forward prior to the public hearing in terms of additional detail.
Yeah, I think it's important that we sort of recognize the amount of runoff that's created by a car wash, and I would hope that they would capture the water, recycle it, all that kind of stuff as part of this development. Thank you.
Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. And further to that, I know we approved a car wash facility on Westwood a short time ago. Will the hours of operation be similar? Do we know what the hours of operation are?
Madam Chair, we haven't specifically talked hours of operation. This area is fully a designated commercial precinct, although I appreciate it's fully residential to meet it to the west. We can come back with some discussions with the applicant around hours of operation. I believe the Husky there, the adjunct use, is not open very late. I drive by the site pretty regularly.
Probably not past 10.
Yeah, but I can certainly discuss with them their proposal in terms of hours of operation and bring that back as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you. If this goes through, what type of buffering would be between the future commercial and the residential properties beside it? You look at attachment 3, you've got the lot in the red and the service commercial, and you've got some residential going. Is there going to be some fencing, hedging, noise mediation, and access issues, restricting access into this?
Yes, Madam Chair. Attachment 6 does show, albeit it's difficult to read, but there's a landscape buffer immediately along the easterly property line, adjacent to what's called Lot 65, which is the RT1 zoned property next door. There is some buffering, landscape buffering on both sides of the property, but there's a buffer there along the east.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to see in here. Thank you.
Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. I visited the site some months ago. Certainly, there'll be a big improvement in what's there now. A big improvement for the area, too. So I have no difficulty supporting this.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Item 5 is a zoning bylaw text amendment to designate the properties at 1025, 1027A, and 1029 Brunette Avenue's temporary use permit area. Recommendations give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4203 and refer the bylaw to public hearing.
Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 6 pertains to consideration of fourth and final reading of zoning amendment bylaw 4148. It's authorization of a development permit for mixed-use high-density development at 2992 Glen Drive. Staff recommendations give fourth and final reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4148 and approve the signing and sealing of the development permit.
So moved.
Any questions? Councillor Robinson? No, Councillor Asmussen, then Councillor Robinson, and then myself.
Thank you very much. Just through to staff, we've had this issue before. What are we going to be able to do about the noise, pile driving in the area residents? Have we talked with the proponent about using alternate ways and trying to mitigate that issue?
Madam Chair, I'll try to respond on that. It's certainly something we can bring up with them. I know our building permit staff have been working actually in connection with engineering, who's responsible for the noise bylaw, in looking into this matter. And I think we're a little overdue in reporting back to council on that. But I think what we're finding is that the technologies, some alternate technologies for pile driving aren't all that applicable here in the ground conditions we have in our city center area. But there's other means of, or other methods or sort of precautions you take to minimize the noise impacts. And we will coordinate that with our building permits people, with the planning staff as this project, if it does go forward. And as I said, I'm sorry, we owe you an update on that issue on the pile driving. So.
And they'll be being in consultation with the units or high-rises and the people in there about the issues, notification, hours of use, and so everybody's aware. And if there's any people are worried, last time we had about damage to units, cracking, stuff, that type of stuff. So if there's that consultation and all that information provided to people ahead of time to get their understanding of what's allowed and what's not.
In fact, Madam Chair, what we're finding is much of the area to focus on is having that consultation in advance, that information, having a contact number that people can call, reviewing situations in adjacent buildings. And so people are aware in advance, and also the contractor is too, and so they can act more sensitively in carrying out those operations.
And I guess my last comment comes down to what I said to Mosaic, is I know this is a high-rise development, but we see some unique designs and buildings and high-rises rather than some straight lines. So once again, we'd like to have some uniqueness and wow to some of the buildings going up here. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I've got just, I guess it's a comment that we've heard before, and it's exciting, I think, to see this one come through. It'll just finish things off. Do we know, in terms of the multiple small retail units, I actually walked through there today, and it's pretty dead pedestrian mall, and is there anything we can do to encourage the kind of retail outlets that will create a bit more of a streetscape where people actually want to sit and visit?
Madam Chair, no specific requirement when this went to third reading in terms of any specific limitations or direction on those commercial. We really are hopeful that as we build more and more of these projects, there ends up being more residents that live here, the greater synergy come to bear, and there's a greater variety of commercial. That's the hope. We're still in the early stages. It is a challenge. This one is a little bit more on the kind of main drag, we feel, so we might be able to encourage. And we've got BOZA coming forward in design phases now towards Burlington. So we think there's a critical mass, and as other things happen in the city, hopefully Evergreen and obviously great streets looking ahead, we feel that will be coming. But there's nothing specific that's been recommended as part of the project to date that would allow us to I guess, fetter or drive the kind of tendencies that may happen here. We can certainly have those discussions with Cressy and see where we can go in terms of their tenant mix or what they're thinking.
Especially if they can do some interesting restaurants and that kind of stuff that would sort of bring people to the street and little cafes or something. It's pretty, like I had to walk to the mall to get something quick to eat, which was sort of disappointing.
This particular project, if I may, Madam Chair, it does have an office component as well, so there's a significant amount of office space that we're really hopeful can drive that market into city center.
Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Just a comment to you is it's kind of nice the way they've staggered these buildings, and they're going to actually be a little different than anything that we have along there, and hopefully, I agree with you, we've got to get some more. I hope once the Nevergreen line gets here, we'll have so many coffee shops we won't know what to do with them. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, my problem is this, that I look at our high-rise that we're building in the Coquitlam Center, and it doesn't matter where they are, we seem to be asking for a lot of commercial space in there. And as you know, commercial space in a lot of areas are going to be empty for a year or two, maybe more, and may not be rented. I think that you're really giving a little hardship to the developer to build this high-rise and then give you 11,000 square feet of commercial that may never be rented. And what is that really costing the community and the business, the builder? So, I think we ought to, and I said this over 2 years ago, that especially in that area, that these buildings are going to, that's pretty far-fetched to be asking for a commercial site in there. It's really far-fetched. And to me, I think we need to rethink the area. We need to rethink what is it that we're doing by demanding. We have the Coquitlam Center, and now we seem to be spreading commercial area all the way down towards the City Hall and either side of the street for commercial. And how long was Henderson Center empty and still is with their commercial? Because there's not that kind of demand. So I think we need to think about it.
Some of this is office. This is an office tower. So, Mr. McIntyre.
No, but it's not an office tower. There's
one building is. Mr. McIntyre.
Again, if there's an office tower, then what do you need commercial in another building besides?
Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you very much.
Did you want an answer to that?
Pardon? No, I don't need.
You don't need
if
an
answer.
answer.
If it's an office
Okay.
tower, it's fine. This one is 11,000 square feet in a 25-story high-rise.
There will be some commercial on the bottom of the residential as well, but it can be retail or commercial, and that's what you don't like.
No, that's exactly what I don't like. If there's going to be an office tower, it's an office tower. There's going to be a lot of commercial there. So next door, you can have a high-rise with 11,000 square feet of commercial. What for? Okay, those are the things that really bother me. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Parking.
Yes. Thank you.
So once again, we have a request for what I would see as a significant variance in parking, about a 10% reduction. 11, thank you. I thought I was the accountant in the room, but I was doing it in my head. Me probably used a calculator. Oh, is it? Thank you. In fact, there it is right at the top of the paragraph. So we have a traffic study done by the developer's consultant, and our staff have reviewed it and concluded that it won't impact traffic in city centre negatively. So I just have a couple of comments. One is that on the assumption that everything else that's developed in the city centre will conform to the standard and will have all the parking that we say people should have. So this little difference on this one project will get spread over all the rest of the development, and it won't really matter. What if everybody expects an 11% variance in their parking?
Exactly.
And the other is our standard wrong? Because we seem to frequently have it recommended that it's okay to vary. So maybe we should set an appropriate standard and then stick to it.
Councillor Nicholson, these are exactly going to be my questions. We had this discussion this morning about the standards specifically. So, Mr. McIntyre, go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. There's some really good questions there. And I know we've wrestled time and time again with these city center applications and with others too around the parking standards. Seeking variances. I guess to answer part of the question, not too long ago there was a policy in the area plan that allowed for, I think, up to council to consider up to a 30% relaxation in the parking standards in city center based on a parking study, plus including other elements or features that might cut back on the amount of parking required. So this is yes, it's still a variance, but it's tracking towards a lesser of a variance I think we've seen in the past. And but that's, I guess, not all that surprising, because that's what we hear when we go out and consult with the property owners in the development community, looking at the land use mix. And Councillor Sikora just raised a really good question about the appropriate mix between commercial and residential, but also in the densities that we're trying to achieve in the city centre, and making sure we're not underutilizing some of the land. And what we pretty consistently hear back from the development community is they think there is good upside, but it can only happen if there's some relaxation or realization around the parking. So on that, our engineering transportation planning group is undertaking a comprehensive review of the city's parking standards. Planning staff will be participating with them in that. And so what we want to do is, through that initiative, look at how do Coquitlam's standards compare to other municipalities, what are current trends these days, but also more specific to the areas within the city and the level of transit service and the expectation there may be rapid transit right on the doorstep here. That's one piece. So you do the compare and contrast. I think what else we want to do is, and I was advised this morning that the part of that research will look at what the parking generation actually is. So going out and looking at projects that have been built recently and occupied, trying to get records of what the car ownership patterns are, the numbers are in those areas. And I think thirdly, too, we want to do like a windshield survey, go out and look at some of these projects at various times of the day and various days of the week, and just see how much of the parking that's being provided is actually being utilized. And so hopefully once we've gone through those 3 steps, we'll have a better sense of are our standards appropriate? Are they too high? Or are they too low? Or are they just about right? And so we're into that right now. In the meantime, we have applications like this coming forward. I think, again, given the location, the mix of uses, because there is that opportunity for shared use of the parking, commercial in the day, and the stores are closed at night, the offices are closed, and maybe there's some arrangement for visitor overflow into that area. I think in terms of the parking layout and allocation, they've heeded what I think Council's been looking for, making sure that visitor parking is properly met, and so you don't leave the visitors out hunting around on the streets in a secured area there too. So staff is supportive, though obviously there's still some large questions around parking that we need to get a good handle on.
Thank you. I guess I would just offer one more comment, and that's as you survey people, perhaps finding a way to stop the guy who's driving in circles around City Hall looking for a place to park and asking him about his parking experiences, or the person who finally desperately parks in the handicap stall in front of the library and gets to talk to me or the mayor or somebody who's really annoyed by that. But we do see people parking inappropriately, parking where they shouldn't. And most people, I think, won't do that until they reach a point of desperation. Thanks.
Okay, I had myself on the list. I, too, have great difficulty with parking, and we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation with staff. Because you say that you have lots of developments in the pike, and yet we don't have this parking solution, I think maybe we need to move it up to the fore before we have to start, not looking at developments until we get a correct parking ratio. Because if we give everybody 10 and 11%, we're going to end up with no parking. And we've had this conversation already. We've also put parking down in some of the little strip malls along Glen, and we've lessened their parking. We've done a lot, but we don't live in downtown Vancouver. We live in a suburb, and people are going to come to the town centre in cars. This development, I'm going to sort of hold my nose and support, simply because 2 things that I did confirm. One, the residential parking, the visitor parking, of course, is up to par. And the entrance to it is totally separate from the commercial parking, so there won't be people using the commercial that are able to access the resident visitor parking. And also because there could be, with the strata, some kind of a shared arrangement so that in the evenings parking of the commercial could be used by some of the residents. But this is a really different one-off type of development. So, Mr. McIntyre, from my perspective, as we had the conversation before, we need to get these parking ratios done, because we start giving everybody 10 and 11%, we're not going to have anybody parking, and that just is totally unacceptable. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you. As I listened to the discussion and to the very good questions that Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Reid brought up around the parking, it reminds me of the density creep challenges that we've been sort of struggling with at Burke. And I'm wondering, and one of the things that we asked for was, can you just keep track of all the variances and allow us to sort of get a sense of what the requests are so that we can see the bigger picture? And I'm wondering if that might be something we can do around this parking. What have the variances been to date? Really, is this as big a problem as we're concerned it is? And if that's going to be part of what you do as these come forward, I would certainly find it helpful so that when we say yay or nay, we have a bigger context and the bigger picture. I appreciate these two councillors bringing up the bigger picture rather than just the single development query. Thank you.
Okay, so it's before you. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 7 is authorization for issuance of a development permit for 3390 Galloway Avenue. This is for an 85 Street-oriented village home development, and the recommendation is to approve the signing and sealing of this DP.
Move the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder?
I know.
Okay, Councillor Rasmussen?
Yeah, just through the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just through the staff. The amount of density is what was planned for in this area, or is this a recalculation? Like when we did the the neighborhood plan, was this what we envisioned? This much of a density?
Yeah.
And so it is the same.
Madam Chair, it's the same as came forward previously.
In the Smiling Creek?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 8 is also pertains to a development permit, and this is for a 9-unit townhouse development in Mayardville at 1412, 1418 Cartier Avenue. Recommendations to approve the signing and sealing of this DP.
Move the recommendation.
Second? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And just thank you, but Mr. McIntyre, next Land Use Committee, could we please have pictures of the developments as we go along put up on the screen? It's no use saying land use and economic development if people can't see what we're talking about. Thank you very much. Move adjournment. Thank you.